Hey neighbor, welcome back to Beyond ARTV. I haven't done one of these in a while, but it's time for problems I have with Lana Del Rey, the singer-songwriter that's often very critically acclaimed, widely popular, but in the public eye, I think that perception has started to shift over the past year or two or three. A lot of that has to do with social media antics, some of it has to do with her attitude, her persona, but also the music at large, which I have been critical of for the better part of a decade. Before we wander all the way from the shallow end to the deep end and get over our heads, I just wanted to say that I've been feeling like I kinda lost my way with this Problems series. Of course, the roots of this date back to like 2015, and I was making videos where I did genuinely vent my feelings, and I don't ever want to stop doing that and being honest, but the roots of this show weren't just entertainment and bashing someone for the sake of it and not leaving it on some sort of constructive criticism at the end. I want to get back to that. I want to circle back on a case-by-case basis and say maybe what I feel an artist or a band could do to improve and maybe get away from these issues. One of the earliest issues that I saw with Lana was what I perceived to be a lack of authenticity. This started with the Born to Die album cycle. She had just transitioned from using her own name, Elizabeth Grant, Lizzie Grant actually, aka Lana Del Rey. She dropped that, she altered the spelling of Del Rey, and now we have Born to Die, this album that was seemingly getting a ton of critical rave reviews, and I had friends talking about her. My roommate at the time was obsessed with the album, and while I didn't love it, I also didn't hate it. I grew into it over the years, and I still think a lot of it holds up. In fact, Blue Jeans is probably one of my favorite songs of all time. However, I did take notice of this kind of romanticized black and white Americana view of the 1950s, the 1960s, and she took the best parts of them, and she started writing songs surrounding that, and a lot of it I'm sure was applicable to her life, but a lot of it felt out of touch. And I think that as the years went by and the reviews kept rolling in, whether they be positive and still noting this, I think she started to take issue with the fact that people weren't believing her lifestyle, and now she stands here on her high horse saying that she's the realest motherfucker on the block, that she's pouring her heart out for the artistry, and I'm over here thinking, why doesn't that translate to tape like at all then? I think that Lana is somebody that continuously tries to put herself out there, but she runs thin on the ideas. She continuously pushes the notion that she's just this never-ending well of knowledge and information, and it's overflowing and spilling out into her music, and she announces her projects way in advance, but by the time they get here, they often just feel very underwhelming. Lana really started to skyrocket in terms of fame in the early 2010s after Born to Die came out. She had that infamous SNL hiccup where she just totally butchered the Blue Jeans performance, and it's very cringy to look back at, but I do think that she got better as a performer. But it was around this album cycle and the interviews that went with this, and then Ultraviolence and Honeymoon, where an interviewer or a reporter would start to ask her about her views on feminism, because obviously a lot of people picked up on the fact that she liked to be a little bit more submissive. So they said, while this might work for you, what do you think about feminism at large? And another problem that I take with Lana is just how much of a flip-flopper she truly seems to be. It feels like sometimes more than others, she's kind of blatantly being a hypocrite, or else she's kind of changing up her views to go with what the tide is saying at the time. And as a society, I do think that it's changed a lot in the past decade, and it makes sense for her views to change. It's just that it seems like she pulls them out when it's convenient for her, when it works, or when it's time to have that in her pocket, she plays that card. When she writes her songs, when she writes from the heart about being this woman that's in love or wanting this kind of jaded relationship where maybe she's not being treated as well as she should and she likes being submissive anyways, I think that some people would make the argument, oh, it set women back 100 years or whatever. I don't agree with that. I think that people love to jump to these just kind of outlandish claims to back up whatever they are thinking, whatever their mindset is. I don't think that Lana has set women back to the point where women can't even vote anymore. They can't drive a car. It's just that some of her views and the way that she stands by them, it's extremely inconsistent. It's very frustrating, and I really don't think that her music is as real as she thinks it is. She portrays it like it's something that's just shaking up the entire world, but again, it's hashing these themes out of the past, and it's pitting them against each other, and sometimes it crosses that line where she starts to pit other women and other artists in the music world against each other. That leads me to what some might refer to as the low-hanging fruit, but it's right there in front of our eyes, and we have to talk about these controversies because these are self-inflicted wounds that are so easily avoidable. It's like, drive around the pothole, don't drive the car straight into the middle of the earth. Lana seems like the type to have the GPS up on the dashboard and it says make a left in 500 feet, and she's like, you know what, I know better actually. I'm gonna take a left in, I don't know, 5 miles, not 500 feet, and then she just drives off the edge of the earth. No, I am not a flat earther. You cannot drive off the edge of the earth. Please do not misinterpret my words. It was a joke, people. In spring of 2020, Lana put out this Instagram post where she was kind of talking about how she wanted to get back to writing songs about being happy in a submissive relationship, but it would have been more okay had she not taken down all of these other female artists in the music industry, from Doja Cat, Megan Thee Stallion, Ariana Grande, Nicki Minaj, and Kalani. I mean, come on, do not go for my girl Kalani. And she went for the throat for really no reason. She thought that she had this finishing move in her back pocket, but really, it just put her in hot water because people were like, girl, you're kind of calling out all of these black artists for being overtly sexual. You're tearing them down in the kind of name of trying to make a point, and it completely failed, and she still hasn't deleted the post. There was the whole mask controversy where she was promoting her book, Violently Bent Over the Grass Backwards, or whatever it was called. I didn't actually read it. I'm sorry, I wasn't exactly going out on a limb to check out Lana's poetry after really everything that she's done leading up to this, and of course that now infamous mask incident. She claims that there was a plastic layer in her mask, but she really reeks of privilege when I look at these comments and these posts. There's obviously points where you can see her in the middle of a pandemic, COVID-19, pulling down her mask to take pictures with fans, and wearing it, claiming there's an extra layer sewn in there when there's obviously not. She's just breathing right on top of everybody, possibly spreading germs. Hopefully no one died because of Lana Del Rey. I'm not claiming that they did, but I'm just saying this was kind of a shitty, selfish thing to do in the middle of a pandemic, and people didn't respond kindly. I really just don't think that Lana has a filter that tells her, hey, maybe you shouldn't put that out there, maybe keep that with you, maybe run it by someone, but she landed herself in trouble yet again this very year, 2021, when she was rolling out her album Chemtrails Over the Country Club. You can see the album cover, and it's not exactly the most diverse looking thing of all time, but she felt the need to take it upon herself before criticism was even pointed at her to say, oh, I dated rappers, my boyfriends were black, basically. And then she pulls that card and wonders why people are like, why did you go there when you weren't even being criticized for that? Basically, she sums it up by saying, yes, I had black boyfriends, yes, I have very diverse friends, it's just maybe not represented very well in this album cover, or maybe it is. I don't know all the heritage, she doesn't seem to know either. It seems like she's talking out of her ass. And to me, it's just this over-representation of what's actually there. I think that it dates back to what I said about her thinking that her music and everything about her art is way deeper than it actually is. She overthinks it even more than her own followers and audience do. And think about how frustrating it must be to be in Lana's fandom, to constantly have to defend her, to have to go out on a limb to a point where you can't even say anything anymore. I mean, she's out here defending potentially incestuous relationships between UK Parliament members. I mean, come on, Lana, stop. What do I think needs to change? That is the burning question at the end of this video, and personally, I think maybe she should give up social media. There's no shame in turning it over to a PR management company or whatever. Just take a few years off, just learn to filter things a bit better and keep it to yourself, or find a way to express yourself that's not so vehement, that's not so, I don't know, expository and overly long and complicated, and you end up dragging yourself and implicating others in the process. And also, I would like to see Lana just stop taking herself and her art too seriously. She can focus on the one bad review, like she dragged that NPR reporter through the mud for no reason, and she has this history of dragging down other women and her brand of feminism. While it may have evolved over the years, I think that her actions are speaking louder than words. And of course, everybody's entitled to their own personal views. I just don't think that what Lana's been doing is very helpful, and I would like to see her run in the other direction, instead of maybe tarnishing her legacy and leaving it on a very sour note. What do you guys think about Lana Del Rey? Whether you love her, hate her, maybe you're indifferent, you like some of the music, but you don't really like her as a person, it's okay to separate the art from the artist, so any opinions, fire away down below. Don't forget to drop a like on the video, it really helps out a great deal. Subscribe for the love of music, and if you want to hear me talk about Lana a little bit more at length in review form, then tap the links on screen now. All of my social accounts, including my Patreon, if you'd like to chip in financially, are in the description, and I'll be back soon with more on Beyond ARTV.